The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, and every head in the hospital waiting room turned. "You're telling me my husband is in surgery and you want me to leave?" The woman's voice cracked, her designer dress torn at the shoulder, blood staining the silk fabric. "I'm his wife. I have every right to be here." The security guard shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the young woman in the Chanel suit standing behind him. She had perfect makeup, perfectly styled hair, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm sorry," the guard said quietly, "but Miss Jiang has asked that you leave the premises. Mr. Chen's family only." "I am his family." The injured woman's legs gave out, and she collapsed against the wall, clutching her bleeding head. "We've been married for 3 years. 3 years. My name is Lila Chen. Check the records. Check anything." The woman in Chanel, Miss Jiang, stepped forward, her heels clicking with authority. "Security. This woman is clearly confused. She was involved in the same accident as Mr. Chen. She needs medical attention, not to be making scenes in my fiancé's hospital wing." "Your fiancé?" Lila's vision blurred. Whether from the head wound or the words, she couldn't tell. "Marcus is my husband. Marcus and I have been together for 5 years," Miss Jiang said smoothly, pulling out her phone. "Would you like to see the photos? The vacation homes? The joint accounts?" She turned to the security guard. "Please escort her to the ER. Send the bill to my office. It's the charitable thing to do." Lila tried to stand, but the room spun violently. The last thing she saw before everything went black was Miss Jiang's satisfied smile and the security guard's pitying eyes. When Lila woke up 3 days later, she couldn't remember her own name. The doctor stood at the foot of her bed, a young man with kind eyes and tired shoulders. Dr. James Park had been on duty the night of the accident. He'd seen the wedding ring on her finger before someone removed it. He'd heard her screaming about being Marcus Chen's wife before they sedated her. And now she was staring at him with empty, confused eyes. "Where am I?" she whispered. "City General Hospital. You were in a car accident. You've been unconscious for 3 days." He checked her chart, his jaw tight. "Do you remember anything? Your name? Where you live?" She squeezed her eyes shut, searching for something, anything, but there was only blank space where her memories should be. I don't know. I don't remember." "It's called retrograde amnesia. Sometimes temporary, sometimes permanent. We'll run more tests." "Was anyone with me? Family? Friends?" Dr. Park's hesitation told her everything. "No one's come to claim you, but we found a hospital bracelet from the ER. The name says Lila. Does that sound familiar?" "Lila," she repeated, testing the word. It felt right and wrong at the same time. "Just Lila? For now." He wouldn't meet her eyes. Something was wrong. Something he wasn't saying. Over the next 2 weeks, Dr. Park watched as the hospital administration processed Lila as a Jane Doe despite his protests. He watched as her bills were mysteriously paid by an anonymous donor. He watched as she improved physically, but remained trapped in a fog of missing memories. What he didn't know was that Miss Zhang, whose real name was Victoria Zhang, had been busy. She'd convinced Marcus Chen, who'd survived the accident with minor injuries, that Lila was a delusional woman who'd been stalking him, that the crash had been her fault, an obsessed fan trying to get close to him, that out of the goodness of his heart, he should pay her medical bills and let her go quietly. Marcus, suffering his own concussion and relying on Victoria's version of events, believed her. "The poor woman clearly has mental health issues," Victoria had said, stroking his hand in his private recovery room. "But darling, you're too kind. Paying her bills when she nearly killed you? That's why I love you." Marcus, who genuinely couldn't remember the details of the accident or the moments before, accepted her narrative. He'd always trusted Victoria. They'd built his empire together. She was his partner, his foundation. Wasn't she? But late at night, he'd wake up with fragments of dreams. A woman's laugh, the scent of jasmine perfume, a voice saying, "I'll always choose you in the darkness," and a ring, a simple platinum band with an inscription he couldn't quite read. He'd shake it off as trauma from the accident and reach for Victoria's hand. Meanwhile, Lila was discharged from the hospital with nowhere to go. Dr. Park helped her get into a women's shelter, gave her a burner phone with his number, and promised to follow up on her case. "Something's not right," he told his colleague over coffee. "I've seen her file. There are inconsistencies, missing documentation, and that wedding ring that disappeared from her belongings. I photographed it before it vanished. It's engraved." "What did it say?" "MC to LC, forever choosing us." That's Marcus Chen's initials. And if her name is Lila, and the hospital bracelet someone tried to destroy said Lila Chen. He trailed off, the implications heavy. "You think she's actually his wife?" "I think someone wants everyone to believe she isn't." 2 months after the accident, Victoria Jiang stood in the master bedroom of the Chen mansion, admiring her reflection. Everything had gone perfectly. Marcus's mother, Margaret Chen, was aging and needed full-time care. The staff had been systematically replaced with people loyal to Victoria. And Lila? She'd disappeared into the city, a ghost without a past. "Darling," Victoria called out sweetly as Marcus entered. "I've been thinking. Your mother needs proper care. I found the perfect caregiver, very experienced, excellent references, and she starts tomorrow." Marcus looked up from his tablet, distracted. "Whatever you think is best. You know I trust your judgment." Victoria smiled. She'd orchestrated this perfectly. The caregiver she'd hired was Lila herself, though Lila didn't know she'd once lived in this very house. Victoria had found her through the shelter's employment network, confirmed her amnesia was still complete, and seen an opportunity too delicious to resist. Why simply erase the wife when you could make her serve in her own home? The next morning, Lila arrived at the Chen mansion with a small suitcase and a heart full of hope. The job paid well, included room and board, and maybe, just maybe, it would give her time to figure out who she really was. The estate took her breath away. Manicured gardens stretched for acres. The house itself was modern glass and stone, probably worth tens of millions. And somewhere in the back of her mind, something whispered that she knew this place. A housekeeper led her to a small room on the first floor, the staff quarters. "You'll care for Mrs. Chen Sr. She has dementia, so don't take it personally if she says strange things. Miss Jiang oversees everything, so you'll report to her." "And Mr. Chen?" "He's very busy. You probably won't see much of him." The housekeeper's expression was carefully neutral. "Keep your head down, do your job, and you'll be fine." Lila met Margaret Chen that afternoon. The elderly woman sat in a sunroom, staring out at the gardens with vacant eyes. But when Lila entered, something shifted in her expression. "Lila?" Margaret whispered. "Lila, is that you?" Lila's heart stopped. You know me?" But just as quickly the clarity faded from Margaret's eyes. "I'm sorry, who are you? Are you the new nurse?" "Yes, Mrs. Chen. I'm here to take care of you." "Good." The last one kept trying to tell me things. Nonsense about my son, as if I don't know my own Marcus. She gripped Lila's hand suddenly. "You seem kind. Don't let the pretty one fool you. She's not what she seems." "Who?" But Margaret had drifted off again, humming a tune that made Lila's chest ache for reasons she couldn't explain. That evening, Lila finally met Marcus Chen. He walked into the dining room where Victoria was setting the table, and time seemed to stop. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp features softened by laugh lines around his eyes. He wore his expensive suit-like armor, and everything about him screamed power and control. But when their eyes met, something cracked in Lila's careful composure. She knew him. She didn't know how or why or from where, but every cell in her body recognized this man. "You must be Mother's new caregiver," Marcus said politely, extending his hand. Marcus Chen. Lila's hand trembled as she shook his. The touch sent electricity through her entire body. "Lila. Just Lila." "Lila," he repeated, and something flickered across his face. confusion, recognition, but it vanished quickly. Victoria speaks highly of your qualifications. Thank you for taking care of my mother. Of course. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. She's lovely. Victoria appeared, slipping her arm possessively through Marcus's. Darling, dinner's ready. Lila, you can eat in the kitchen with the other staff. The dismissal stung more than it should have. Lila nodded and turned away, missing the way Marcus's eyes lingered on her retreating figure, his brow furrowed. Do I know her? He asked Victoria quietly. Of course not, darling. Why would you? I don't know. Something about her. You're probably remembering the accident. The woman who caused it had similar coloring. Dark hair, pale skin. Your mind is playing tricks. Victoria guided him toward the dining room. Come on, I made your favorite. But Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was forgetting something crucial. Over the following weeks, Lila settled into a strange routine. She cared for Margaret during the day, listened to the elderly woman's rambling stories about when Marcus brought his bride home, and the wedding in the garden, and tried to ignore the way her heart raced every time she passed Marcus in the hallways. Victoria, meanwhile, took every opportunity to remind Lila of her place. The bathroom on the second floor is for family only. Use the one in the staff quarters. Don't speak to Marcus unless he speaks to you first. Mrs. Chen is confused. Don't encourage her delusions about you being part of this family. Each command was delivered with a smile that never reached Victoria's eyes. And each time Lila felt something inside her recoil, not just from the treatment, but from the wrongness of it all. One afternoon, while Margaret napped, Lila found herself in the mansion's library. The room called to her with an urgency she didn't understand. Her hands trailed over the spines of books, and then she saw it. A photo album tucked between two volumes. She pulled it out with shaking hands and opened to the first page. Wedding photos. Marcus in a tuxedo, looking younger and happier than she'd ever seen him. And beside him, in a stunning white dress, Lila's breath caught. It was her. Her face, her smile, her eyes shining with joy as Marcus kissed her cheek. The album fell from her hands, pages scattering across the floor. She grabbed at them frantically, seeing her own face repeated over and over. Engagement photos, vacation pictures, a candid shot of her and Marcus laughing in this very library. What are you doing in here? Lila spun around. Victoria stood in the doorway, her expression cold. I was just these photos. Lila held up one of the wedding pictures. This woman looks like me. Who is she? Victoria's smile was poisonous. You think you look like her? How presumptuous. That woman is long gone. Dead, actually. A tragic car accident. The lie landed like a physical blow. Now clean up this mess and get back to your duties. Mrs. Chen needs her medication. After Victoria left, Lila carefully gathered every photo, her hands trembling. Dead? But that was her face, her smile. She'd stake her life on it. She needed proof. She needed answers. That night, she called Dr. Park from her burner phone. Something's happening, she whispered, huddled in her small room. I'm working at a mansion and there are photos of me here, wedding photos. But the woman who hired me says the bride is dead. Dr. Park, what if I'm not who they say I am? Where are you? The Chen estate. I'm caring for Marcus Chen's mother. The silence on the other end was deafening. Lila, Dr. Park said finally, his voice tight. That's your husband. Marcus Chen is your husband. I've been investigating since you left the hospital. I found your marriage license, your shared bank accounts, property deeds with both your names. You're Lila Chen. You've been living in your own house as a servant. The world tilted sideways. That's impossible. He doesn't recognize me. Someone convinced him you're dead or crazy or both. Someone who has a lot to gain from erasing you. He paused. There's a woman, isn't there? Someone close to him? Victoria Zhang. She says she's his fiancée. She's lying. I have proof. Photos of you and Marcus from before the accident. Joint credit cards. A lease on a vacation home in both your names dated 6 months ago. Lila, you need to get out of there. This woman is dangerous. No, Lila's voice hardened. I need to make him remember. I need him to see who she really is. That's risky. This is my life, my home, my husband. She stole everything from me. I'm taking it back. The next morning, Lila started leaving clues. Small things that might trigger Marcus's memory without alerting Victoria. She wore jasmine perfume, the scent from his dreams. She hummed the song Margaret had hummed, the one from their wedding. She rearranged books in the library to match their old system. And slowly, Marcus began to notice. That perfume, he said one evening, passing her in the hallway. What is it? Jasmine, do you like it? Yes, it's familiar. He looked troubled. Have we met before? Before you started working here? I don't know, Lila said carefully. Have we? Victoria appeared before he could answer, her arm sliding possessively through his. Darling, we're late for dinner with the investors. Lila, Mrs. Chen needs her evening medication. But Marcus kept looking back as Victoria pulled him away, his expression troubled. That night, he dreamed again, but this time, the dreams were clearer. A woman in his arms, laughing as they danced in the garden, her voice saying, I choose you, Marcus Chen, today and every day after. A ring sliding onto her finger, candlelight catching the engraving. He woke up gasping, reaching for his phone. 3 a.m. He pulled up old photos, scrolling back past Victoria's carefully curated pictures of them together. And there, buried deep in his camera roll, he found them. Photos he'd forgotten existed. Him and Lila, kissing, laughing, holding hands. A video of their wedding vows. I choose you, video Lila was saying, tears streaming down her face. In this life and every life after. Forever. And his own voice responding, forever choosing us. The inscription on the ring, the one from his dreams. Marcus sat in the darkness, his heart pounding. What had he done? What had Victoria convinced him to believe? He grabbed his laptop and started searching. Marriage licenses, property records, bank statements, and there it was, in black and white. Lila Chen, his wife, still legally his wife, still alive, still living in his house as a servant while he planned to marry another woman. The horror of it crashed over him in waves. The accident, Victoria's version of events, the way she'd isolated him during recovery, controlled his access to information, replaced the staff who'd known Lila. She'd erased his wife from his life and convinced him to help. Marcus stood abruptly, rage and shame warring in his chest. He needed to fix this. He needed to... Darling? Why are you up? Victoria stood in the doorway in silk pajamas, her expression concerned. But Marcus saw it now, the calculation behind her eyes, the way she monitored his every move. I remember, he said quietly. I remember everything. Victoria's mask slipped for just a moment. Remember what? My wife, Lila. The woman you've been treating like a servant is my wife. Marcus, you're confused. The accident you told me was her fault. The wife you convinced me was dead. The life you systematically erased while I was vulnerable. He stepped toward her, fury making his voice shake. How could you? How could you do this to her? To us? Victoria's expression hardened. You chose me, Marcus. You chose me over her every single day for 5 years. Every late night at the office while she sat home alone. Every business trip where we shared a bed. Every lie you told her about where you were and who you were with. I didn't steal you. You gave yourself to me. The words hit like bullets, each one true and devastating. He had chosen Victoria. Long before the accident, he'd been unfaithful, too focused on business and ambition to see what he was destroying at home. That doesn't justify this, he said hoarsely. What you did to her, what I did was save you from a marriage that was already over. You were going to divorce her anyway. We discussed it. The accident just expedited things. By convincing me she was crazy? By making her a servant in her own home? By stealing months of her life? He grabbed his phone. I'm calling the police. And telling them what? Victoria laughed coldly. That you forgot you were married and I took advantage? That your wife is alive and you've been sleeping with me while she scrubbed your floors? Marcus, think about the scandal, your company, your reputation, the investors, your mother. I don't care. Yes, you do. You've always cared more about your image than anything else. It's why you stayed with me, even when you loved her. Victoria moved closer. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to pay Lila off, a generous settlement. She'll sign an NDA, disappear quietly, and we'll move forward with our engagement. The company stays stable, no scandal, everyone wins. Except Lila. Lila will be rich and free of a husband who never appreciated her. Trust me, she's better off. Marcus stared at this woman he thought he'd known, seeing her clearly for the first time. Brilliant, ruthless, completely without conscience. Get out, he said quietly. Pack your things and get out of my house. Victoria's smile was sharp as a blade. This is going to destroy you. I know, but living with what I've done to her will destroy me worse. The next morning, Marcus found Lila in the sunroom with his mother. She was reading aloud, her voice soft and patient. Margaret's hand rested on hers, the elderly woman's face peaceful. He stood in the doorway, taking in the scene. How had he forgotten this? How had he convinced himself to erase the one person who'd loved him unconditionally? Lila, he said softly. She looked up, and the expression on her face, hope mixed with caution mixed with hurt, nearly brought him to his knees. Can we talk? They walked to the garden, Margaret's nurse taking over. Lila's hands were shaking, but she kept her chin up, her spine straight. Even now, even after everything, she was stronger than he'd ever been. I remember, Marcus said without preamble. Everything. The wedding, our life together, the accident, what Victoria did, what I let her do. He couldn't meet her eyes. I'm sorry doesn't even begin to cover it. You forgot me, Lila whispered. You forgot we were married and you made me a servant. I know. She told me I was nothing, that I didn't belong here. Every single day she reminded me I was beneath you. And you looked right through me, like I was invisible. I know, he said again, his voice breaking. Lila, did you love her? The question was barely audible. Before the accident, did you love her? Marcus wanted to lie, wanted to spare her this final cruelty, but she deserved the truth. I thought I did. We were, he swallowed hard. I was having an affair. For 2 years before the accident. I was planning to ask you for a divorce. Lila's breath hitched, but she didn't cry. She just nodded slowly, absorbing this final betrayal. Then why are you telling me this now? Why not just let me go? Because what Victoria did was unforgivable. Because you deserve to know the truth. Because... He finally looked at her. Because I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to make this right. The house is yours. The company shares in your name are still yours. Everything I took from you, I'm giving back. And Victoria is gone. You expect me to thank you for returning what was already mine. No, I expect you to hate me. But I need you to know that I see you now. I see what I did, what I destroyed. And I'm going to make sure you never have to see me again if that's what you want. Lila stood there in the garden where they'd been married 3 years ago, looking at the man she'd loved and lost and found again, and felt nothing. No, not nothing. Clarity. I want a divorce, she said calmly. I want my maiden name back. I want half of everything, not because you're giving it to me, but because I earned it. I worked to build your company from the ground up while you were building a life with her. And I want you to know that the man I married wouldn't have done this. That man is dead. You're just a stranger wearing his face. The words hit Marcus harder than any physical blow could have. "Okay," he said hoarsely. "Whatever you want. I'll have my lawyer. I have my own lawyer now. Dr. Park helped me find one. Someone who specializes in cases like this." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Marcus? I'm taking Margaret with me. She's the only family I had here, and I'm not leaving her with you." "She's my mother!" "She's a person with dementia who loves me and deserves better than a son who can't remember his own wife. I'll have my lawyer contact you about guardianship." She walked away, head high, leaving Marcus standing alone in the garden where he'd promised her forever. 6 months later, Dr. James Park sat across from Lila at a small cafe, watching her laugh at something on her phone. She looked different now, lighter, freer, more herself than she'd been since he'd met her in that hospital bed. "What's so funny?" he asked. "Margaret. She sent me a selfie from the senior center. Apparently she's teaching a pottery class." Lila showed him the picture, the elderly woman covered in clay, beaming with pride. "She's doing so well in the new memory care facility. Thanks to you, that place is top tier. Thanks to the divorce settlement." Lila's smile turned sharp. $50 million goes a long way toward proper care for someone you love. "And toward starting your own business," James added, gesturing to the tablet where Lila had been reviewing designs. "How's the charity foundation coming?" "Good. We're focused on helping amnesia patients and their families, making sure no one else gets erased the way I was." She met his eyes. "I couldn't have done any of this without you. You're the only one who saw me when everyone else looked right through me." "I see you," James said quietly. "I've always seen you." The air between them shifted, charged with possibility. "James," Lila started, then hesitated. "It's too soon. I'm not ready for—" "I know, and I'm not going anywhere. Whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here." He reached across the table, not quite touching her hand. "As a friend, as a doctor, as whatever you need me to be." Lila felt tears prick her eyes. Good tears this time. Grateful tears. "Thank you." Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Chen Industries faces scandal. CEO Marcus Chen accused of corporate fraud by former business partner Victoria Zhang. Lila read the headline and felt nothing. No satisfaction. No vindication. Just a quiet sense of justice running its course. "Should we send flowers?" James asked Riley, reading over her shoulder. "No. We should order dessert and talk about the charity gala next month." Lila closed her phone and smiled at him, a real smile, full of genuine warmth. "I'm done looking backward." "To looking forward, then," James raised his coffee cup. "To remembering who I am," Lila corrected, touching her cup to his. "And never forgetting again." Across the city, Marcus Chen sat in his corner office, watching his empire crumble. Victoria had struck back with devastating efficiency, exposing every shady deal, every cut corner, every lie he'd told to build his fortune. The board was calling for his resignation. The investors were fleeing. The company he'd sacrificed everything for was collapsing. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to the last message Lila had sent him, 3 months ago. "I don't forgive you, but I hope you learn to forgive yourself. Not for your sake, for the sake of whoever you become next." He'd read it 1,000 times, searching for hidden meanings, for any hint of lingering love or hate or anything at all. But there was nothing there, except exactly what she'd said. Hope that he'd become someone better. Not for her, for himself. Marcus looked out at the city skyline, the sunset painting everything gold and red. He'd lost everything, his wife, his mother, his company, his reputation. But somewhere in the wreckage, maybe he'd find the man he should have been all along. The man who chose love over ambition. The man who saw the people right in front of him. The man who didn't need to lose everything to learn what actually mattered. Maybe it was too late. It's too, for Lila. Too late for them. But it wasn't too late for him to try. A year after the accident, Lila stood in the garden of her new home. Smaller than the Chen mansion, but completely hers. Margaret sat in a comfortable chair nearby, painting watercolors with surprising skill despite her dementia. "This one's beautiful, Margaret," Lila said, admiring the elderly woman's work. "It's for you, dear, for remembering me even when I forget myself." Lila's throat tightened with emotion. "Always. I'll always remember." James arrived with takeout, greeting Margaret with a warm hug before joining Lila on the porch. They'd been dating for 3 months, slowly, carefully, building something real. "Did you hear?" James asked, unpacking containers. "Marcus donated his entire personal fortune to amnesia research. He's keeping enough to survive, but everything else, gone. 50 million to your foundation alone." "I heard." Lila had been shocked when her lawyer called with the news. "Do you think he's trying to buy forgiveness?" "I think he's trying to become someone who doesn't need to be forgiven." James handed her chopsticks. "That's not your problem anymore, though." "No," Lila agreed, taking a bite of lo mein. "It's really not." They ate in comfortable silence, watching Margaret paint, listening to the birds in the garden. And for the first time since waking up in that hospital bed with no memory and no identity, Lila felt completely at peace. She'd been forgotten, erased, stolen from herself. But she'd found her way back, not to who she was before, but to someone stronger. Someone who knew her own worth. Someone who'd survived the worst betrayal and came out the other side with her humanity intact. She'd been the billionaire's forgotten wife. Now she was just Lila, whole, healed, and finally free. And that was more than enough. So what did you think? Did Marcus deserve a second chance? Or was Lila right to walk away? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely want to know where you stand. And if this story had you hooked from start to finish, smash that subscribe button, because I've got more stories that'll make you question everything about love, memory, and what we're willing to forget to protect ourselves. Hit the like button if you're Team Lila or Team James, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.